Hey guys, Doterian here, back with a Last Epoch update video. So played a lot of hours, about 410 hours. I really enjoyed the game. I'm just waiting for the next cycle. So we have the roadmap, which will plan out the next few cycles. Now this is brilliant news for Last Epoch. Essentially, the next few cycles roadmap will cover like the next year of what Last Epoch's going to look like, because every cycle runs about 3 to 4 months. So essentially, we're going to have content planned out for the next year or so. So let's have a quick look at the roadmap to see what we're getting in Last Epoch. Now, if we look at the graphic that was posted by EHG, we have cycle 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. It does look like there's 1.5 here as well, but they're not showing what 1.5 will. So in the next cycle 1.1, which will be soon because it has been a few months since the launch, cycle 1 will give us new monolith threats. So this will be the Harbingers and Pinnacle boss. So the Pinnacle boss essentially will be the hardest content in the game. We also have random encounters nemesis. I'm not exactly too sure what that is. And then lastly, we also have the evade dodge roll mechanic being put into the game. Now I think that's brilliant because a lot of ARPGs have now implemented the dodge roll. And I think adding it into Last Epoch as well will allow EHG to actually make harder content as well, because we now have a dodge roll mechanic, which will be more skill based. They can now add and implement more mechanics that are more challenging, more difficult, because we have the addition of the dodge roll. So really cool in the next cycle. Cycle 1.2 looks like it's covering the Primal Hunt endgame events. We also have Ancient Era story chapter. So more additions to the Ancient Era timeline in the campaign, because this aspect of it will be explored in the game. And then we also have primordial uniques as well, so I guess new uniques that's going to be added into the game, probably a different type of item or a unique item, or maybe an uber buffed unique item, which will be quite cool. Next cycle here we have 1.3, which is explore the lost realities preserved in time. So we have a monolith of fate expansion, so essentially something that's being changed to the monoliths, unique false echoes, and new procedural side zones as well. So some new content there. And then finally, we've got 1.4, introducing skill sigils. So a way to buff your skill tree, new endgame bosses, and transmog and die systems. So a lot of new content coming in the next year of Last Epoch. Let's have a quick read in terms of what they say about it. It says here, our roadmap continues to showcase that we have long-term plans for Last Epoch and its content, and we're excited to showcase it here today. We are striving to be one of the best and most community-centered game studios in the game, and often the best laid plans for goals and gods need to change. While this could be for a variety of reasons, the primary one is you, the community. As new cycle is released, we plan to collaborate with the community to let you know what's being worked on, listen to your feedback and suggestions for your plans, and continuously monitor how we can improve. So this is actually one of the best things I love about Last Epoch and EHG as a game studio that's designing the game, how transparent EHG is with the community, and they also asked for the feedback, and that feedback actually matters. Essentially, they're delivering on a game that the community wants to play. It also says here, these are a few examples of the key features we plan to introduce for that cycle and do not represent the only things that's being worked on. Rest assured the team is working harder and developing faster than before, whilst also expanding with many new team members to bring you the game you deserve and produce a whole host of other features we have planned beyond those in the roadmap. So that's really good to hear. It's not just these things, but these things tend to be the biggest items in each of the cycles. We plan to update the roadmap just after update 1.2 and again after 1.4. So that's really good to hear. At least some of these things can change, but it looks like overall, these are the things that they aim to go for. The next thing here is a Pinnacle content release timing poll. So this is talking about the next update where they plan to introduce the Pinnacle boss content. But I think it's also moving forward with additional content that they will plan to provide. For a refresher, existing cycle characters will be moved to Legacy at the beginning of a new cycle. Creating new cycle characters will give everyone an even playing field with an economy reset and the need to re-roll a new separate character. Cycle is also where people may compete on that cycle's leaderboard. With that said, we would love to hear from you our currently proposed plans. Please take a few minutes, and this is the poll. So let's go into the poll. Okay, so let's have a look at this poll. So essentially what they're saying is the current plan is to have a Pinnacle boss available only to new Cycle Online characters for a limited time. Then after a specific time, the boss will be available for all game modes. The goal of this plan is to help foster healthy and competitive event options for our community, whilst also not removing content from our game modes. With this hybrid approach, players who want to create competitive events centered around the Pinnacle bosses would be able to do so without worrying about the landscape. It would not be inherently as fair as possible. An example of how this might work: patch 1.1 releases and all new content is patched to all game modes with the exception of the Pinnacle boss, which is only available for Cycle Online characters. Once any character in Cycle Online has cleared the Pinnacle content, it unlocks after a short delay for all game modes. So that's really good to hear. Let's have a look at the questions that they ask. How do you feel about the small delay before releasing the Pinnacle content to offline and legacy characters so that players have an even playing field for attempting this content during launch? So I do agree that they should release the Pinnacle content to offline and legacy, so I'm going to click strongly agree. And the reason why is because there's certain types of players who don't want to engage with the cycle content, but they should still be able to challenge the Pinnacle bosses even if they want to. And because the cycle is based on a more competitive zone, there's some players out there who might not want to be in part of that competition. So I do think it's a good idea that the Pinnacle content does also come to Legacy as well. Next we have, if we do go with a proposed plan from question 1 as a failsafe, we would want a time delayed action that releases the boss regardless of whether someone has cleared it or not. This prevents the content from being locked inadvertently. What is the longest amount of time for a Pinnacle boss should wait to be released if no one has cleared it? And so at this point, I think it should be no time limit. And the reason why is because on Legacy, characters are going to be much stronger than when a cycle starts. So you shouldn't be able to verse a Pinnacle boss if no one in the cycle has cleared the boss. And it might be because the boss that they release is like extremely hard, in which case characters who are on Legacy are going to be so much stronger and they'll clear the boss straight away. Whereas if you want it to be competitive, you want people to start clearing the boss on cycle first and then give people in Legacy a chance to do that. So I'm going to tick here, no time limit. If we go with proposed plan from question 1, what is the shortest amount of time after the Pinnacle boss has been cleared before it unlocks for all game modes? I said here, always wait for the time limit chosen in question 2, which is no time limit. So essentially people would have to clear the Pinnacle boss in cycle first before the Pinnacle content is put into Legacy. And then finally we have, is there a specific game mode within Cycle Online that should be preferable to the unlocking condition? I just put here any game mode. I don't think it should matter. Everyone should be able to do the cycle content. And I'm going to click submit. And then we also have community questions related to the dodge roll mechanic. So it says here, we're happy to see the discussion regarding the new evade mechanic we're planning to include in 1.1. We have noticed the discussions can be hard without full details about this mechanic. As such, we're posting a breakdown of the current implementation that we're internally testing to help that discussion. So we have evade, a new universal movement for all characters from level 1. This is a new tool to add to your existing tool belt. We can expect this to be a fun new mechanic that opens up build opportunities and spices up combat. So evade. Evading does not grant damage immunity or prevent abilities from hitting you. That's pretty standard. So it doesn't give you any iframes or anything like that. And it also gains increased cooldown reduction per character level. This means if you're a level 100, you have 50% cooldown reduction on your evade, which means it goes from 4 seconds to 2 seconds. I actually think 4 seconds is too short. I don't think you should be able to evade every 2 seconds. I think evade should be a more meaningful type of movement, but it is what it is. So details, it's spacebar by default, and then you've got it on controller as well. It does not use up one of your 5 action bar slots. You have 4 seconds with 2 charges. It is affected by increased cooldown recovery stat. At level 100, you get 100% cooldown recovery speed. Evade has a 1.6 second cooldown. This cooldown is independent and is not shared with traversal skills. Charges recharge sequentially, not simultaneously. No skill tree for this. Evade may have triggers or other mechanics tied to them through items, other skills and passive trees, and possible new sources in the future. Increased travel speed with the increased movement stat. So haste does not affect this. So that I actually like. And then the distance is roughly 80% of the rogue's dash. Okay, so that gives us an indication of how big the evade is going to be. The design intention, we're constantly working to improve the underlying gameplay features. This is a feature that we can have considered for years. I'm not going to read all this, but essentially the new addition of evade makes it so that you can make more challenging content. You can make things harder because now you've given the players a tool to evade certain type of mechanics. Whereas some players or some characters, by default, like for example, if you're playing like some sort of primalist build that kind of stays still, or if you have like a channeling character that can't move around, at least now with the addition of the evade, you can give those builds a tool to kind of reposition themselves or reposition their character so that they can dodge mechanics or get into position to angle their attacks better. So I think the addition of dodge mechanics and evade mechanics in ARPGs is really, really cool. So yeah, that's what it says here. We also want to have the freedom to design harder and more dynamic boss fights. Some mechanics could heavily benefit from being able to get out of danger quickly. In the past, most players would take a traversal skill, however, not all did. This means that we have not been able to design encounters with abilities that too strongly encourage a movement burst, as it would force players to take a traversal skill in their limited ability loader. Yeah, so that's absolutely true. I think the addition of having evade now gives players an idea that they don't have to take a traversal skill to reposition their character. They can just use the evade, whereas some characters might benefit from a move speed type skill where it increases their move speed rather than having to position your character very quickly. That's pretty much it for this roadmap. Let me know what your thoughts are in the description down below, how you feel about the roadmap, what you think they could do better. If you enjoyed the video, drop me a like down below and subscribe to the channel. And as always, have an awesome day. Bye for now.